The bruises on Jessica's face told a story my heart refused to believe. My 15-year-old daughter sat motionless on our couch, her eyes vacant, hair disheveled with clumps missing. Blood had dried at the corner of her swollen lip. My own mother did this. The woman I'd financially supported for years had beaten my child over $600. As Jessica whispered what happened, my entire body went cold. Because beneath her sleeve was something worse than any visible bruise, cigarette burns in a perfect line up her arm. I grew up believing family meant unconditional support, especially financial. My mother, Patricia, raised me as a single parent after my father died when I was 8. She worked 2 jobs, constantly reminding me of her sacrifices. "I gave up everything for you, Amber," she'd say whenever I wanted something. Money was always tight, but we managed. I promised myself I'd repay her someday. After college, I landed a marketing job at a pharmaceutical company and married Tyler, my college sweetheart. We had Jessica when I was 22, young, but we were in love and financially stable. Patricia seemed genuinely happy for us, offering to babysit anytime. Those early years were good. When Jessica turned 5, Tyler and I divorced. He had fallen for his administrative assistant, a cliché I never thought would happen to us. The split was relatively amicable, we shared custody, and Tyler paid child support regularly. My career was flourishing, so financially, Jessica and I were secure. Patricia's situation, however, was deteriorating. She called one night sobbing that she was being evicted. The landlord raised the rent again. "I can't afford it on my pension," she cried. Without hesitation, I offered her $500. Her gratitude seemed endless, calling me her saving angel. That was the beginning. Small emergencies became monthly occurrences: car repairs, medical bills, utility shut-off notices. By the time Jessica was 10, I was sending Patricia $1,000 monthly. "Just until I get back on my feet," she promised repeatedly. When Patricia's boyfriend Frank moved in with her, I expected her financial situation to improve. Instead, the requests increased. Frank lost his job, or Frank's disability check was delayed. I raised my support to $2,000 monthly, transferring it like clockwork on the first of each month. Jessica had a complicated relationship with her grandmother. Patricia could be charming and generous, buying Jessica extravagant gifts from her savings, which I strongly suspected came from my money. But she was also critical, particularly of Jessica's appearance, constantly commenting on her weight and clothes. "You're getting chubby like your mother was," she'd say, though Jessica was perfectly healthy. Despite these comments, Jessica maintained a polite relationship with her grandmother, visiting for Sunday dinners and occasional weekends. I encouraged these visits, wanting Jessica to have family connections beyond just me and her dad. My sister Melanie had warned me about enabling Patricia. "She's manipulating you, Amber. Mom's always been like this." But Melanie lived in Seattle with her husband and 2 children, far from Patricia's influence. She'd cut financial ties with our mother years ago, causing a permanent rift. I didn't want that distance. I wanted Jessica to know her grandmother. Everything changed during a routine Sunday dinner at Patricia's apartment last month. Jessica excused herself to use the bathroom and accidentally entered Patricia's bedroom instead. Later, she whispered to me in the car, "Mom, Grandma has shopping bags everywhere. Like, expensive stuff. Nordstrom, Saks, even Tiffany." I dismissed it initially. "Maybe they were old bags, honey. Or Frank got her something nice." But the seed of doubt was planted. The next week, I drove past Patricia's apartment building and spotted her loading shopping bags into her car, just as Jessica had described. Later that day, she called claiming her electricity was about to be shut off. I transferred the money immediately, but found myself questioning everything. That night, I couldn't sleep. I pulled up my banking records and calculated I'd sent Patricia over $100,000 in the past 5 years. For someone constantly on the brink of financial disaster, where was this money going? I called Melanie, who sighed deeply. "Amber, I tried to tell you. Do you remember Mom's gambling trips to Vegas when we were kids? Those weren't work conferences." I sat stunned as Melanie explained Patricia's lifelong pattern of financial manipulation and addiction issues she'd discovered years ago. The next morning, I received a call from my director, Diane. Amber, we need you in Boston next week for the North Shore Pharmaceuticals merger. 3 days. All expenses paid. This could mean a director position for you. My heart raced at the opportunity I'd been working toward for years. Then I realized Jessica would be on spring break. Tyler was on his honeymoon with his new wife. I had no one to watch her except Patricia. I don't want to stay with Grandma, Jessica protested, folding her arms across her chest. We stood in our kitchen, the morning light casting shadows across her worried face. Can't I just stay home? I'm 15, Mom. I know, honey, I said, pouring coffee into my travel mug. But it's 3 days. And legally, I can't leave you alone overnight yet. I didn't mention my other concern. Jessica's recent mood swings and secretiveness had me worried about typical teenage rebellion if left unsupervised. But Grandma's weird lately. She's always asking about your job and how much you make. Jessica twisted her long brown hair, a nervous habit since childhood, and she makes those comments about my weight. I sighed, guilt tightening my chest. I've talked to her about that. She promised she'd stop. I crossed the kitchen and hugged her. This promotion could mean so much for us. Better hours, more security, maybe even that summer program in New York you wanted. Jessica's resistance softened slightly. Fine, but I'm bringing my laptop, and you have to call every night. I agreed, relief washing over me. That afternoon, I drove Jessica to Patricia's apartment, a modest 2-bedroom in a decent neighborhood. Nothing extravagant, nothing that suggested she was spending thousands on luxury items. Patricia greeted us warmly, hugging Jessica with unusual enthusiasm. We're going to have such a wonderful time, she exclaimed. Her platinum blonde hair freshly colored, designer glasses perched on her nose. Were those new? I pushed the thought away. Mom, I transferred this month's money yesterday, I said quietly while Jessica took her bags to the guest room. $2,000, as usual. Patricia smiled, patting my hand. You're such a good daughter, Amber. I don't know what I'd do without you. Her eyes darted toward the guest room. Jessica's growing into such a beautiful young lady, taking after her mother. Something in her tone made me uneasy, but I attributed it to pre-trip anxiety. I reviewed emergency contacts, Jessica's mild shellfish allergy, and her homework requirements. Patricia waved away my concerns. I raised you, didn't I? We'll be fine. I hugged Jessica goodbye, whispering, Call me anytime, day or night. She nodded, forcing a smile that didn't reach her eyes. The flight to Boston was turbulent, matching my unease. By the time I checked into the hotel, it was nearly midnight. I texted Jessica. Arrived safe. Love you. Her response came immediately. All good here. Grandma made spaghetti. Love you too. The first day of negotiations went exceptionally well. Diane pulled me aside afterward. The CFO was impressed with your projection models. Keep this up, and that director position is practically yours. I called Jessica that evening. She seemed fine, if a bit subdued. Grandma took me shopping and bought me some clothes, she reported. Nothing I'd pick, but whatever. That was nice of her, I said, surprised by Patricia's generosity. Everything else okay? Yeah. Frank came over. He's weird, but he mostly watches TV. Can I go? Zoe's calling on the other line. I said goodnight, feeling better about the arrangement. The second day of negotiations was more challenging. Our company wanted exclusivity clauses that North Shore was resisting. The meeting ran late, and I missed dinner, grabbing a sandwich in my hotel room while reviewing contract amendments. My phone rang at 9:30. Patricia's name flashed on the screen. Amber, sweetheart. Her voice was sugary sweet. I hate to bother you during your important business trip. Is everything okay? Is Jessica all right? I immediately tensed. Oh, she's fine, watching some show in the bedroom. Patricia's tone shifted slightly. But I have a bit of an emergency. My car's transmission is acting up, and the mechanic needs $600 to fix it by tomorrow. I frowned. $600? That seems high for diagnostics. It's not just diagnostics, Patricia's voice hardened. They need to order parts. I have to pick up prescriptions tomorrow. It's important, Amber. The familiar guilt rose in my chest, but something felt off. Mom, I just sent you $2,000 3 days ago. What happened to that? Silence stretched between us. When she spoke again, her voice was icy. I paid bills, Amber. Electricity, water, rent. Things adults have to pay. The condescension in her tone sparked something inside me. Mom, I've been sending you $2,000 monthly for years. Your rent is $1,100. Utilities shouldn't be more than $300. Where's the rest going? Are you accusing me of something? Her voice rose. After everything I've done for you? Memories of Melanie's warnings flashed through my mind. The shopping bags, the new glasses, the endless financial emergencies. I'm not sending more money, Mom. Use what I already gave you, or ask Frank. Frank? She laughed bitterly. He barely covers his own expenses. This is your responsibility, Amber. I raised you alone after your father died. I'm sorry about the car, but I can't send more right now. My voice was firmer than I'd ever used with her. I'll help you budget when I get home. Budget? She spat the word. Like I'm some irresponsible child? You ungrateful. She stopped abruptly. I heard Jessica's voice in the background, asking something. We'll discuss this later, Patricia said coldly. Enjoy your fancy hotel. She hung up. Unease settled in my stomach. I called Jessica immediately, but the call went to voicemail. I texted, "Everything okay? Call me as soon as possible." No response came. I called Patricia's number again, straight to voicemail. My anxiety mounting, I called the landline. No answer. I tried to focus on work, telling myself they were probably just upset and would call in the morning. At 11:15, my phone finally rang. Jessica's name flashed on the screen. Relief flooded through me until I heard her sobbing. Mom. Her voice was barely audible. Can you come get me? Please? Jessica? What's happening? I gripped the phone tightly, my heart racing. She went crazy, Mom, Jessica sobbed. Grandma got so mad after she talked to you. She started screaming about how ungrateful you are, how you owe her everything. I stood up, already mentally packing my bag. Where are you now? Are you safe? I'm at Zoe's house. Her voice shook. Her mom picked me up. Relief washed over me. What happened exactly? I asked, dreading the answer. Jessica's breathing was erratic, her words coming in bursts between sobs. After she got off the phone with you, she started throwing things. She said you thought you were better than her now. I tried to go to the guest room, but she followed me, still screaming. My daughter's voice broke. She said I needed to call you and convince you to send the money. When I refused, she grabbed my hair and yanked me off the bed. Mom, she pulled out chunks of it. Bile rose in my throat. Oh my God, Jessica. I tried to get away, but she dragged me across the living room by my hair. Frank just sat there watching, like it was normal. When I screamed at her to stop, she slapped me so hard I hit the wall. Jessica's voice dropped to a whisper. And then she got her cigarette. The room spun around me. Jessica, did she burn you? Her silence was answer enough. I ran out and called Zoe, she continued. Grandma was screaming that I couldn't leave, that I was ungrateful just like you. But I just ran. Zoe's mom picked me up at the corner store. Let me talk to Zoe's mom, I said, struggling to keep my voice steady. I'm coming home right now. Zoe's mother Tracy confirmed Jessica was safe at their home. Amber, she has visible bruises on her face and burns on her arm, she said quietly, away from the girls. I'm a mandatory reporter as a teacher. We need to call the police. I'll be on the first flight home, I promised. Please, keep her safe until then. I called Diane's room, apologizing profusely about the family emergency. To my surprise, she was immediately supportive. Family comes first, Amber. I'll handle the final negotiations. Just keep me updated. The earliest flight wasn't until 6 a.m. I spent the night alternating between rage and devastating guilt. How could I have been so blind? How could I have left my daughter with someone capable of such cruelty? I called Patricia once more. She answered on the first ring. Have you reconsidered my request? She asked coolly, as if nothing had happened. Jessica called me, I said, my voice shaking with fury. She told me what you did. Patricia scoffed. That child is dramatic, just like her father. I barely touched her. She has burns, Mom. Burns? What is wrong with you? She was hysterical, making ridiculous accusations about my spending. I needed to calm her down. Patricia's voice was chillingly of fact. This wouldn't have happened if you'd just sent the money. This is really your fault, Amber. I felt physically ill. I'm coming home. If you ever come near my daughter again, I'll make sure you regret it. Patricia laughed. Big words from someone who can't even manage without my help. Who watched Jessica when you were building your precious career? Who was there when Tyler left you? You owe me. I've given you over $100,000, I shouted. How much is enough? Don't bother coming here, she snapped. Jessica's things are on the porch, and don't expect any more babysitting. Clearly, I'm such a monster. I hung up, hands shaking. I texted Tracy, asking if her husband could retrieve Jessica's belongings. Then I called someone I should have contacted years ago, my sister Melanie. She hurt Jessica? Melanie's voice was tight with controlled anger. I'm not surprised, Amber. I warned you. I know, I whispered, tears streaming down my face. I should have listened. Melanie sighed. What she did to us as kids was bad enough, but this is criminal. You're pressing charges, right? Yes, I said firmly. I should have set boundaries years ago. I just didn't want Jessica to lose her grandmother like we lost Mom when Dad died. Mom didn't die, Amber. She just changed when her enabler was gone. Melanie's voice softened. I'll book a flight out tomorrow. You shouldn't face this alone. The flight home was the longest 5 hours of my life. When the plane finally landed, I turned on my phone to find multiple missed calls from Tracy and an unknown number. I called Tracy first. We filed a police report, she said immediately. Officer Daniels took pictures of Jessica's injuries. She needs to see a doctor, Amber. Those burns might get infected. I'm headed straight to your house, I promised. Thank you for everything. The unknown number had left a voicemail. Frank, Patricia's boyfriend. Amber, your mother is very upset. I think there's been a misunderstanding. Jessica was being disrespectful, and Patricia just disciplined her. Call us so we can sort this out as family. Discipline? My blood boiled. There would be no sorting out, no misunderstanding. Only consequences. When I arrived at Tracy's house, Jessica was asleep on their couch. The sight of her wounded face brought me to my knees. A dark bruise spread across her cheekbone, her lip was split, and patches of her hair were visibly missing. Tracy's husband Bill gently touched my shoulder. The officer said the burns are second degree, he said quietly. Not life-threatening, but they'll likely scar. I nodded, unable to speak. Tracy brought me coffee, her face grim. Officer Daniels said they're taking this very seriously. They've already been to your mother's apartment, but she's not cooperating. Did Jessica tell you anything else? I asked, watching my daughter's chest rise and fall with her breathing. Tracy hesitated. She said this wasn't the first time your mother hurt her. Not this badly, but there were other incidents. The floor seemed to drop from beneath me. What? When? During weekend visits over the past year. Small things at first, pinching, hair pulling when you weren't looking. Jessica didn't tell you because your mother threatened to tell you she was doing drugs or having sex if she complained. Shame and horror washed over me. How could I have missed the signs? How could I have continued sending money to someone who was hurting my child? Jessica stirred, her eyes fluttering open. When she saw me, she burst into tears. I held her gently, mindful of her injuries, my own tears falling into her hair. I'm so sorry, Mom, she whispered. I should have told you sooner. No, baby, I said firmly. This isn't your fault. None of it. I'm the one who's sorry. I should have protected you better. As I helped Jessica to the car, my phone rang. Officer Daniels, requesting we come to the station. We need formal statements, she explained. And Miss Sullivan, there's something else you should know. We found evidence in your mother's apartment that suggests this goes beyond a single incident of abuse. The police station was cold and sterile, the fluorescent lights harsh against Jessica's bruised face. Officer Daniels, a compassionate woman in her 40s, led us to a small room with uncomfortable chairs and a table. She explained they would need to interview Jessica alone first. Then me. "Is that necessary?" I asked, reluctant to let Jessica out of my sight. "She's been through so much." "Standard procedure in abuse cases," Officer Daniels explained gently. "Don't worry, our youth victim specialist will be with her. She's excellent with teenagers." Jessica squeezed my hand. "It's okay, Mom. I can do this." As she disappeared down the hallway, Officer Daniels turned to me. "Miss Sullivan, while we wait, there's something you should see." She placed a folder on the table. "These were found in your mother's apartment when officers responded to the assault report. Inside were dozens of credit card statements, all in my name, dating back 3 years. Cards I had never applied for, from banks I'd never used. Thousands of dollars in charges for clothing, jewelry, restaurants, and cash advances." "That's not possible," I whispered. "Those aren't mine." "We believe your mother has been committing identity theft," Officer Daniels said. "The total fraud amount exceeds $70,000, in addition to whatever legitimate financial support you've provided." My mind reeled. $70,000 on top of the $100,000 I'd willingly sent? How had this happened? "There's more," Officer Daniels continued. "We found these." She slid out photographs: Jessica sleeping, Jessica changing clothes, Jessica in the bathroom. Hidden cameras in the guest room and bathroom. "This is a serious crime, Miss Sullivan." Bile rose in my throat. My own mother had violated my daughter's privacy in the most disgusting way. "Why?" I managed to ask. "Why would she do this?" The detective believes the photographs were meant as leverage. If Jessica ever reported the abuse, your mother could threaten to distribute embarrassing images. Officer Daniels' face showed genuine sympathy. "We're adding charges of producing exploitative images of a minor." I buried my face in my hands, overwhelmed by the depravity. All those years, I'd believed I was helping my struggling mother. Instead, I'd been funding a monster who manipulated, stole, and abused. Jessica's interview lasted almost 2 hours. When she emerged, her eyes were red, but she seemed oddly calmer. The youth specialist, a woman named Tara, gave me a reassuring nod. "Jessica did wonderfully," she said. "She was very brave and detailed." My interview followed, exhaustive questions about my financial support of Patricia, Jessica's visits, any previous signs of abuse I might have noticed. I admitted, shamefully, that I'd dismissed Jessica's reluctance to visit as normal teenage behavior. I detailed the phone call demanding more money, the subsequent assault, everything I knew. "What happens now?" I asked when we were finally finished. "Your mother has been arrested for child abuse, identity theft, financial fraud, and production of exploitative images of a minor," Officer Daniels explained. "Given the severity and evidence, bail will likely be substantial if granted at all." She handed me paperwork for an emergency restraining order. "This covers both you and Jessica. We'll also need you to work with our financial crimes unit to document the identity theft." I nodded, exhaustion settling into my bones. "What about Frank?" "He was there during the assault and did nothing. We're investigating his involvement. If he was aware of the financial crimes or abuse, he could face charges as accomplice." She paused. "Miss Sullivan, Jessica needs medical attention for those burns. They could become infected." We left the station with a stack of paperwork, referrals to victim services, and the crushing weight of betrayal. At the emergency room, Dr. Harrison examined Jessica's burns, cleaning them gently while explaining the treatment. "These will likely leave scars," he said quietly. "But proper care can minimize them. Physical scars often heal better than emotional ones, though." He glanced meaningfully at me. "I'm prescribing antibiotics and recommending trauma counseling for both of you." In the car heading home, Jessica was silent, staring out the window. Finally, she spoke. "I should have told you sooner about Grandma. The other times." "What other times, honey?" I asked, dreading the answer. Jessica's voice was small. "Last summer, when I stayed for a week, She got mad when I used too much hot water in the shower. She grabbed my arm so hard it bruised. And at Christmas, she pinched me under the table when I asked for seconds at dinner. Said I was too fat already. Each word was a knife to my heart. Why didn't you tell me? She said you wouldn't believe me, that you'd think I was making it up to avoid visiting. Jessica turned to me, her eyes haunted. And she said if I told, she'd show you pictures of me that would make you hate me. The hidden cameras, the disgusting violation of trust. Jessica, I would always believe you, always, and nothing could ever make me hate you. I reached for her hand. I failed you by not seeing what was happening. That ends now. When we arrived home, Melanie was waiting on the porch. She gasped when she saw Jessica's face, tears springing to her eyes. "Oh, honey," she whispered, hugging Jessica gently. "I'm so sorry this happened to you." Inside, Melanie had already prepared dinner, knowing we'd be exhausted. As Jessica took her medication and went to lie down, my sister and I sat at the kitchen table, voices low. "The police found hidden cameras. Mel," I whispered, still unable to fully process it, "and credit card fraud. She stole my identity." Melanie's face darkened. "She did the same to me, years ago. That's why I cut her off." "I tried to tell you. Why didn't you just say that directly?" I asked. Hurt that she'd kept this from me. Would you have believed me? You were so determined to be the good daughter, to give Jessica the grandmother we never really had. Melanie sighed. "I filed fraud charges, but dropped them when she agreed to stop contacting me. I should have pushed harder, made sure you knew everything." I shook my head. "This isn't your fault. I was willfully blind, because I wanted to believe she'd changed." My phone chimed with a text from Officer Daniels. "Thought you should know. Search of Patricia's apartment revealed multiple designer items, jewelry, electronics. Estimated value over $50,000. Appears she's been living quite lavishly." I showed Melanie, who gave a bitter laugh. "Meanwhile, she had you convinced she was practically destitute." Classic Patricia. "There's something I don't understand," I said, rubbing my temples. "If she was stealing my identity and I was sending her money, why did she need $600 more so desperately that she'd hurt Jessica over it?" Melanie's expression turned grim. "It was never about the money, Amber. It was about control. You challenged her authority by saying no. In her mind, that's unforgivable." The truth of those words settled heavily on my shoulders. All these years, I hadn't been helping my mother. I'd been feeding her need to control me, to keep me subservient through guilt and obligation. I checked on Jessica, who had fallen into an uneasy sleep, her damaged face troubled even in rest. Sitting beside her bed, I made a silent promise. This cycle of abuse would end with me. My daughter would never again suffer because of my blindness. My phone rang, Tyler, Jessica's father, returning my earlier call. As I explained what happened, his shock turned to fury. "I'm coming over," he insisted. "Jessica needs both of us right now. And Amber, this isn't your fault. Patricia manipulated all of us." When he arrived an hour later, we sat together in the living room, forming a plan to help Jessica heal and to address the legal and financial nightmare Patricia had created. For the first time since our divorce, I felt truly united with Tyler in our shared purpose, protecting our daughter. As midnight approached, I finally checked my work email. Diane had sent an update on the North Shore negotiations, successful, despite my absence. The last line of her email made me weep. "Family always comes first, Amber. Your job is secure. Take whatever time you need." I crawled into bed beside Jessica, something I hadn't done since she was small. In sleep, she curled against me instinctively, seeking the safety I had failed to provide. "I'm here now," I whispered, stroking her hair gently around the missing patches. "And I'm never letting anyone hurt you again." The next morning, Jessica winced as I helped apply antibiotic ointment to her burns. The angry red circles had begun to blister, each one a permanent reminder of my mother's cruelty. Jessica refused to look in the mirror, turning away whenever she caught glimpses of her bruised face. "Will they always look like this?" she asked quietly, staring at the burns on her arm. "They'll heal," I promised. Maybe not completely, but they'll fade. I hesitated. Dr. Wilson called. She has an opening for us this afternoon. Jessica frowned. The therapist? I don't need therapy, Mom. I'm not crazy. Therapy isn't for crazy people, honey. It's for anyone who's experienced trauma. I sat beside her on the bed. I'm going too. What happened affects both of us. She considered this, then nodded reluctantly. Is Dad staying? He's working remotely from the guest room this week. I smiled slightly. Even brought that Xbox thing you've been asking for. The ghost of a smile crossed her face. It's just called Xbox, Mom. Not Xbox thing. The familiar teenage correction was reassuringly normal. The doorbell rang, Detective Malone from the Financial Crimes Unit. A stern woman with compassionate eyes, she spread documents across our dining table. We've identified 7 fraudulent credit cards and 3 loans in your name, she explained, pointing to statements. All correspondence was directed to a P.O. box your mother controlled. The total fraud amount is $82,000 and growing, as we uncover more accounts. My stomach lurched. How do I fix this? First, we file formal identity theft reports. Then freeze your credit, dispute the fraudulent accounts, and work with each company's fraud department. She passed me a thick folder. This guide walks you through the process. Prosecuting your mother will help establish you as the victim, not a willing participant. Tyler joined us, his face hardening, as Detective Malone explained the extent of Patricia's crimes. What about Jessica's college fund? He asked suddenly. Amber, you said Patricia helped you set it up years ago. My blood ran cold. I'd given Patricia $10,000 to establish a 529 plan for Jessica when she was born, with instructions to add $500 monthly from the money I sent. Patricia had sent statements showing the account's growth to over $70,000. Detective Malone made a note. We'll investigate. If this account exists, we'll find it. If not, she didn't need to finish the sentence. After she left, I called Jennifer, an attorney Melanie had recommended who specialized in family law and financial crimes. Her assistant scheduled an appointment for the following day, warning it would be expensive. Money that should have gone to Jessica's future would now fund legal battles against my own mother. Dr. Wilson's office was warm and inviting, with comfortable chairs and soft lighting. Jessica sat stiffly beside me, her body language screaming discomfort. I'd like to talk with both of you together first, Dr. Wilson explained. Then separately, if that's all right? She asked Jessica to describe what happened in her own words. My daughter spoke haltingly at first, then with increasing confidence as Dr. Wilson nodded encouragingly. Hearing the full account, Patricia's escalating rage, the hair, pulling, the slaps, Jessica's terror when Patricia lit the cigarette, was almost unbearable. I gripped the armrests to keep from breaking down. And before this incident? Dr. Wilson asked gently. Were there other concerning behaviors from your grandmother? Jessica glanced at me nervously. She was different when Mom wasn't around. Nice sometimes, buying me things, but then really mean if I did something wrong. She'd say things like I was getting fat like Mom was as a teenager, or that my friends probably just pretended to like me. Each revelation was another wound. Dr. Wilson turned to me. And you weren't aware of these interactions? No, I whispered, shame washing over me. I thought their relationship was basically good. Jessica seemed reluctant to visit sometimes, but I attributed it to normal teenage preferences. The magnitude of my failure felt crushing. Amber, Dr. Wilson said firmly. What your mother did reflects her pathology, not your parenting. She deliberately concealed her abuse, as abusers typically do. The important thing now is supporting Jessica's healing and examining the patterns that allowed this situation to develop. In my individual session, I broke down completely, sobbing as I described my lifelong pattern of appeasing Patricia, of prioritizing her demands over my own well-being and ultimately, Jessica's safety. She always made me feel I owed her, I confessed. That without her sacrifices, I'd be nothing. I've spent my adult life trying to repay a debt that kept growing. Dr. Wilson nodded. That's a common dynamic in these relationships. Your mother installed those guilt buttons in your childhood. then knew exactly how to push them. Breaking free means recognizing those patterns and creating new responses. When we left, Jessica seemed lighter somehow. She didn't make me feel weird, she admitted, and she said I could text her any time if I start feeling really bad. At home, Melanie had prepared dinner. As we ate, my phone rang, Officer Daniels with an update. Patricia's bail hearing was today, she reported. Given the severity of charges, bail was denied. She'll remain in custody until trial. Relief flooded through me. Thank you for letting us know. There's something else, Officer Daniels continued. Frank came forward with information in exchange for immunity from prosecution. He claims Patricia has been running similar schemes with other family members and acquaintances. We're investigating these allegations. After hanging up, I relayed the information to Melanie, whose face darkened. I bet that includes Aunt Susan. Remember how Patricia managed her finances after Uncle Joe died? Susan ended up losing her house. The next morning brought another revelation. Detective Malone called, her voice grave. Miss Sullivan, we've completed our initial investigation into Jessica's college fund. I'm sorry to report no such account exists. The statements you received were fabricated. Though I'd suspected this, the confirmation was devastating. $70,000 meant for Jessica's future. Gone. I sank into a chair, fighting nausea. However, Detective Malone continued, we did discover something unusual. Your mother has a safety deposit box containing approximately $25,000 in cash and several pieces of jewelry. Given the timing of deposits, this appears to be money diverted from your legitimate support payments. A small consolation, but something. Can it be recovered? Once she's convicted, yes. The court can order restitution from these assets. Jennifer's law office was in a renovated Victorian downtown. She listened intently as I detailed Patricia's abuse, fraud, and manipulation, taking copious notes. You have a strong case for both criminal prosecution and civil damages, she concluded. The evidence is substantial. Financial records, Jessica's documented injuries, witness statements, the hidden cameras. Patricia will likely face significant prison time. And Frank? I asked. As an accomplice who's cooperating, he'll probably receive a lesser sentence, possibly probation with restitution requirements. Jennifer leaned forward. Amber, I should warn you, cases involving family can get ugly. Patricia may make counter-accusations, claim you were complicit in the fraud or fabricated the abuse allegations. She would do that, I acknowledged, remembering Patricia's chilling words. This is really your fault, Amber. We'll be prepared, Jennifer assured me. Document everything. Keep a detailed log of Jessica's recovery, your financial damages, any contact attempts from Patricia or her associates. That evening, Tyler, Melanie, and I sat with Jessica to discuss next steps. Her bruises had deepened to purple, blue, but she held herself with newfound determination. The prosecutor wants to know if you're willing to testify, I said gently. You don't have to decide right now. Jessica squared her shoulders. I'll do it. Someone needs to tell the truth about Grandma. She looked at me, her eyes reflecting a maturity beyond her 15 years. If I don't speak up, she might hurt someone else. Tyler squeezed her hand. I'm proud of you, Jess. That takes real courage. There's something else we need to discuss, I said carefully. Grandma took the money that was meant for your college fund. Jessica's face fell. All of it? But that was like thousands of dollars. We're working to recover what we can, Melanie interjected. And your mom and dad will figure out alternatives. I'll get more scholarships, Jessica said, determination replacing disappointment. And maybe a part-time job next year. My heart swelled with pride at her resilience. We'll make it work, together, but right now, your only job is healing. Later that night, as I was sorting through financial documents, my phone rang. An unknown number from the county jail. Patricia. My finger hovered over the decline button, but something made me answer. Hello? Amber. My mother's voice was artificially sweet. There's been a terrible misunderstanding. These ridiculous charges. Stop, I interrupted, my voice steady. There's no misunderstanding. You abused my daughter, stole my identity, and betrayed every ounce of trust I placed in you. Jessica is exaggerating, Patricia snapped, her tone instantly changing. You know how dramatic teenagers are? And those credit cards? I only opened them because you weren't sending enough to cover my needs. This is your fault for being so stingy. The familiar guilt trip washed over me, but this time, I recognized it for the manipulation it was. No, Mom. This is your fault, only yours. You chose to hurt Jessica, to steal from me, to lie for years. After everything I've done for you? Patricia's voice rose. I sacrificed my entire life for you, and this is how you repay me? By believing that ungrateful brat over your own mother? That brat is my daughter, who you burned with cigarettes. My voice shook with controlled rage. Do not call here again. Any communication needs to go through my attorney. You'll regret this, she hissed. When all your dirty secrets come out in court? I hung up, hands trembling but mind clear. For the first time in my life, I had confronted Patricia without backing down, without accepting blame that wasn't mine. It felt like breaking free of chains I'd carried so long I'd forgotten they existed. Melanie found me in the kitchen, staring at the phone. Patricia? She guessed. When I nodded, she asked, How do you feel? I considered the question carefully. Lighter, I finally said, like I've set down something heavy I've been carrying forever. She smiled. Welcome to the other side, sis. It gets easier from here. 2 weeks after Patricia's arrest, Jessica returned to school. The visible bruises had faded to yellowish smudges, and her hair was growing back where it had been pulled out. The cigarette burns remained angry and red, but Dr. Harrison assured us proper care would minimize scarring. Her first day back was difficult. Despite our request for discretion, rumors had spread. Jessica texted me during lunch. Everyone's staring. Zoe told people Grandma hurt me. Some kids are being weird about it. I offered to pick her up early, but she refused. I'm not hiding, Mom. That's what she would want. Her resilience amazed me. Dr. Wilson explained it was common for trauma survivors to find strength they never knew they had. Jessica's discovering her own power by refusing to be a victim, she told me during our session. My own recovery was more complicated. The financial devastation Patricia had caused required hours of paperwork, phone calls with fraud departments, and meetings with Detective Malone. Each fraudulent account uncovered was another betrayal to process. This will take months to untangle, Jennifer warned during our weekly update. But we're making progress. 3 credit card companies have already cleared the fraudulent charges. Work had become both a refuge and a challenge. Diane arranged for me to work remotely temporarily, but the North Shore account needed attention. I forced myself to focus during video meetings, pushing aside thoughts of court dates and therapy appointments. One afternoon, my phone rang, a local number I didn't recognize. Miss Sullivan? This is Martha from First Community Church. I'm calling about your mother, Patricia. My guard immediately went up. What about her? She's been a treasurer of our outreach ministry for years, Martha explained. We're concerned about some financial discrepancies that have come to light since her situation. Another scheme, I sighed. Martha, I recommend contacting Detective Malone at the police department. My mother has been conducting multiple fraudulent activities. After I hung up, I called Melanie. First Community Church just called. Apparently, Patricia was their treasurer. Melanie groaned. Of course she was. Access to church funds while building a reputation as a charitable Christian woman. Classic Patricia move. How many others do you think there are? I asked, dreading the answer. Who knows? She's had decades to perfect these schemes. Melanie paused. Have you talked to Aunt Carol lately? She mentioned loaning Mom money a few years ago. By the end of the week, we'd identified 5 more victims of Patricia's manipulation, 2 family members and 3 organizations where she'd volunteered as treasurer or financial secretary. Detective Malone added these cases to the growing file. Your mother is what we call a systematic fraudster, she explained. She created an entire lifestyle funded by other people's money, using emotional manipulation and position of trust to access funds. Jessica's therapy was progressing well, but night terrors disrupted her sleep. I'd wake to her screams, rushing to her room to find her fighting invisible hands. She was burning me again, she'd sob as I held her. During one particularly difficult night, Tyler stayed over, sleeping on the couch to provide additional support. Around 3 a.m., Jessica's screams woke both of us. We took turns sitting with her until she fell back asleep. I never imagined my mother could be capable of this, I whispered as Tyler and I shared coffee in the kitchen afterward. How did I miss who she really was? Tyler considered this. You saw what you needed to see, Amber. You needed a mother who loved you, so that's who you believed she was. He squeezed my hand. That's not weakness. It's being human. The preliminary hearing was scheduled for a Monday morning. Jessica had agreed to testify, her courage bolstered by Dr. Wilson's preparation sessions. I took the day off work, and Tyler rearranged his schedule to join us. The courthouse was intimidating, all marble floors and echoing hallways. Jessica gripped my hand tightly as we followed Jennifer to the designated courtroom. Melanie had flown in again to support us, her presence a steady comfort. Remember, Jennifer briefed us, this is just to establish probable cause for the case to proceed to trial. The judge will hear evidence and testimony, then decide if there's sufficient reason to move forward. Given the evidence, that's almost certain. When Patricia was let in, I barely recognized her. Without her designer clothes and carefully styled hair, she looked smaller, older. Her eyes found mine immediately, her expression morphing from blank to accusatory. I held her gaze steadily, refusing to look away. The charges were read: child abuse, assault, identity theft, fraud, exploitation of a minor through illicit photography, embezzlement from multiple organizations. Patricia pleaded not guilty to all counts, her voice strong and indignant. The prosecutor presented evidence methodically: Jessica's medical records, photographs of her injuries, financial documentation, statements from other victims. When Jessica was called to testify, she walked to the stand with her head high, though I could see her hands trembling. Her testimony was clear and devastating. She described Patricia's escalating abuse, the manipulation, the assault over the $600, the cigarette burns inflicted as punishment. The courtroom was silent except for Jessica's steady voice and the occasional scratch of the judge's pen. Patricia's attorney attempted to undermine Jessica's credibility, suggesting she was exaggerating to avoid visits with a strict grandmother. Isn't it true, he asked, that you resented your grandmother's rules about appropriate behavior? She didn't have rules, Jessica replied firmly. She had moods. When she was in a good mood, I could do anything. When she was mad, nothing I did was right. The attorney tried another angle. Your mother sends your grandmother money regularly, correct? Isn't this really about your mother trying to stop those payments? Jessica's eyes flashed. My mom stopped paying because Grandma hurt me when she didn't get extra money. The regular money wasn't enough for her. When it was Patricia's turn to testify, she portrayed herself as a loving grandmother, misunderstood by an ungrateful family. I sacrificed everything for Amber, she said, tears glistening. And now she's turned my granddaughter against me over a simple disciplinary action. You call cigarette burns simple discipline? The prosecutor asked incredulously. Patricia sniffed. Jessica was hysterical, making wild accusations about me. I merely restrained her for her own safety. Any injuries were accidental. The lie was so blatant I gasped audibly. Jennifer squeezed my arm in warning. When Patricia addressed the financial crimes, her strategy became clear. Amber authorized me to handle her finances. She knew about these accounts. This is a scheme to avoid debt she willingly incurred. The prosecutor systematically dismantled this defense, presenting evidence of Patricia's elaborate efforts to conceal the fraud, the P.O. box, the forged signatures, the fabricated statements. By the time testimony concluded, Patricia's story had crumbled under the weight of evidence. The judge ruled there was abundant probable cause to proceed to trial on all charges. Patricia was returned to custody, bail again denied due to flight risk and the severity of charges. Outside the courtroom, Jessica exhaled heavily. She didn't even say sorry. She just kept lying. People like your grandmother rarely take responsibility, Jennifer explained. In her mind, she's the victim here. At home that evening, We gathered in the living room, myself, Jessica, Tyler, and Melanie, our impromptu support system stronger than ever. The prosecutor thinks Patricia will accept a plea deal rather than face trial, I reported after speaking with Jennifer. The evidence is too overwhelming. What kind of deal? Tyler asked. 5 to 7 years in prison, restitution of recoverable assets, and permanent restraining orders. Jessica curled into the couch, pulling a blanket around herself. Will she really go to prison? Yes, I said firmly. What she did was criminal, Jessica. The financial fraud alone would send her to prison, let alone hurting you. Melanie opened a bottle of wine, pouring glasses for the adults. To justice, she toasted. Finally. Later, as Jessica slept peacefully for the first time in weeks, Tyler and I sat on the porch swing, the night air cool around us. I've been thinking, he said carefully. Jessica's college fund needs rebuilding. I'm getting that promotion next month. I can increase my contributions. Thanks, I said, genuinely grateful. I'm looking at taking on additional projects at work. The director position is still on the table, despite everything. We sat in comfortable silence, parents united in purpose. She's going to be okay, Tyler finally said. Jessica. She's stronger than either of us realized. She gets that from you, I smiled. Your stubborn determination. He laughed. And your resilience. She's the best of both of us. As Tyler left, I checked my email one last time. There was a message from Detective Malone with the subject line Discovery. I opened it to find a bombshell. Patricia had a gambling addiction. Bank records showed regular large withdrawals at casinos, dating back years. This explains the constant need for more money, Detective Malone wrote. Gambling addicts develop increasingly elaborate schemes to fund their addiction. The shopping, the luxury items, likely secondary addictive behaviors, or attempts to maintain appearances. The revelation didn't excuse Patricia's actions, but it helped explain the insatiable financial demands. I forwarded the email to Melanie, who responded immediately. Makes sense. Remember those work trips to Vegas? Dad always said they couldn't afford vacations, yet Mom went to conferences multiple times a year. Another piece of the puzzle clicked into place. My mother's behavior wasn't just malice or greed, it was addiction, driven desperation. The knowledge didn't diminish her responsibility, but helped me understand the forces that had shaped our family's dysfunction for decades. I slept soundly that night, no longer haunted by guilt or confusion. For the first time since discovering Patricia's betrayal, I felt something approaching peace, not because everything was resolved, but because I finally understood the truth I'd been avoiding my entire life. My mother's love had always been conditional, transactional, and ultimately, hollow. But the love I had built with Jessica, Tyler, and Melanie was real, tested by fire and proven strong. That was the foundation on which we would rebuild. 1 year later, I stood in the backyard watching Jessica arrange chairs for her 16th birthday party. Her dark hair had grown out completely, covering the spots where Patricia had pulled chunks from her scalp. The cigarette burns on her arm had faded to small round scars, less noticeable now but still present, permanent reminders of that terrible day. Mom, can you help with the streamers? Jessica called, balancing precariously on a stepladder. I hurried over, steadying the ladder while she taped colorful paper across the patio. So much had changed in 12 months. Patricia had ultimately accepted a plea deal, 6 years in prison, with mandatory psychiatric treatment for gambling addiction, full restitution of recoverable assets, and permanent restraining orders protecting both Jessica and me. She would be eligible for parole in 4 years, but Jennifer had assured us the restraining orders would remain in effect regardless. The financial aftermath had been grueling. It took 8 months to clear the fraudulent accounts from my credit, each one requiring affidavits, police reports, and persistent follow-up. Patricia's safety deposit box had yielded $32,000 in cash and jewelry, which was ordered returned to me as partial restitution. The church and other organizations had received smaller settlements from the sale of Patricia's remaining assets. Jessica's college fund was slowly rebuilding. Tyler's increased child support helped, as did my promotion to marketing director at the pharmaceutical company. Diane had championed me for the position, impressed by my resilience during the family crisis. You demonstrated extraordinary grace under pressure, she told me, when offering the promotion. That's exactly what we need in leadership. Therapy continued for both Jessica and me, though less frequently now. Dr. Wilson had helped us process the trauma, establish healthy boundaries, and recognize warning signs of manipulation. Jessica's nightmares had largely subsided, replaced by occasional anxiety that we now had tools to manage. Melanie had moved from Seattle to a city just 2 hours away, wanting to be closer after everything that happened. Our relationship had deepened, the shared experience of Patricia's betrayal creating a bond stronger than we'd ever had. She arrived early for the birthday party, carrying a large wrapped package. "Where's the birthday girl?" she called, setting down the gift. Jessica ran to hug her aunt. "Is that for me? It's huge." Melanie laughed. "You'll have to wait and see. Where should I put the cake?" As they headed inside, Tyler arrived with his wife Laura. Our co-parenting relationship had strengthened through the crisis, evolving into a genuine friendship that included Laura. She had been surprisingly supportive, helping with Jessica's recovery in practical ways. "The yard looks great," Tyler commented, setting down his own gifts. "Need help with anything?" "I think we're good," I replied. Jessica invited 15 friends. "Hopefully that's not too many teenagers for one backyard." He grinned. I brought earplugs, just in case. Jessica's friends began arriving, filling the yard with teenage energy. Watching her laugh with Zoe and her other friends, I marveled at her recovery. There were still moments, when the trauma surfaced. Certain triggers would cause her to withdraw or become anxious, but they were becoming less frequent and less intense. As the party progressed, I found myself sitting with Melanie, watching the celebration from a quiet corner. "She's doing so well," Melanie observed. "You both are." I nodded. "Some days are still hard. She asked me last week if I ever miss Mom, and I didn't know how to answer." "What did you say?" "That I miss the mother I thought I had, not the person she really was." I sipped my lemonade. It's complicated, grieving someone who's still alive, but was never who you believed them to be. Melanie squeezed my hand. "That's a perfect way to explain it. I went through that years ago, but it's still difficult sometimes." The financial lessons had been painful but valuable. I'd become much more aware of my spending, saving diligently to rebuild our security. No more automatic transfers to anyone, no more unquestioned financial support. The director position had come with a significant salary increase, most of which went directly to savings and Jessica's college fund. "Have you heard from any of Mom's other victims?" Melanie asked. "Aunt Carol called last month. She's still struggling to accept that Mom manipulated her into those temporary loans." I shook my head. $5,000 she'll never see again. "The saddest part is how many people she hurt," Melanie mused. "Family, friends, those organizations that trusted her." "The church pastor visited me," I admitted. "He wanted to apologize for not recognizing the warning signs." Apparently, Mom volunteered as treasurer, specifically when their regular person was on medical leave. Classic opportunism. Jessica approached with a plate of cake. "Are you guys talking about Grandma again? You promised no heavy stuff today." I smiled apologetically. "Sorry, birthday girl. Just wrapping up." "It's okay." Jessica sat between us. "Dr. Wilson says it's normal to need to process it sometimes, as long as we don't let it take over." Out of the mouths of teenagers. "When did you get so wise?" I teased. Jessica rolled her eyes. "Therapy twice a week for a year will do that." But she was smiling. As the party wound down and guests departed, Jessica opened her presents. Melanie's large package contained an electric keyboard. Jessica had started piano lessons 6 months ago as a therapeutic outlet. "This is amazing," she exclaimed, immediately exploring the keys. "I can practice without going to the community center now." Tyler and Laura gave her concert tickets to her favorite band, while my gift was more practical, a laptop for schoolwork, replacing the one Patricia had damaged during her rampage. After everyone left and the yard was cleaned up, Jessica and I sat on the porch swing, watching the sunset. "Did you have a good birthday?" I asked. "The best," she replied, leaning against my shoulder. "Way better than last year." Last year's birthday had been shortly after Patricia's arrest, a subdued celebration overshadowed by trauma and court proceedings. The contrast was striking. "Mom?" Jessica said after a while. "I've been thinking about something Dr. Wilson and I talked about." "What's that?" "She said sometimes when bad things happen, they can eventually lead to good changes that wouldn't have happened otherwise." Jessica traced one of the faint scars on her arm. "I think that's true for us." "I considered this." "How so?" "Before everything with Grandma, you were always stressed about money, working all the time, trying to please everyone. And I was kind of spoiled, honestly." She smiled ruefully. "Now we both appreciate things differently. We're stronger." Her insight touched me deeply. "You're right. I spent years trying to buy my mother's approval, ignoring red flags, sacrificing our security. I'll never make those mistakes again. And I learned who my real friends are," Jessica added. "Zoe and her mom helped when it really mattered. Some people just disappeared when things got difficult." We sat in comfortable silence as darkness fell. Finally, Jessica spoke again. "Do you think Grandma will ever change? Like, really understand what she did wrong?" I considered the question carefully. "I don't know, honey. Gambling addiction treatment might help with that part of her behavior. But the manipulation, the cruelty, those patterns are deeply ingrained. Some people don't have the capacity for true change." "That's sad," Jessica said softly. "It is. But it's not our responsibility to fix her or wait for her to change. Our job is to protect ourselves and build a healthy life together." Jessica nodded. "I'm glad we have each other. And Dad. And Aunt Melanie." "Me too." I hugged her gently. More than anything, later that night, as Jessica slept surrounded by her birthday gifts, I sat at the kitchen table, reviewing our finances. The spreadsheet showed steady progress, debt reduced, savings growing, retirement and college funds slowly rebuilding. The numbers represented more than money. They were proof of our recovery, our independence from Patricia's manipulation. My phone buzzed with a text from Melanie. "Great party. So proud of you both. Love you, sis." I smiled, typing back. "Love you too. Thanks for everything." The journey wasn't over. There would still be difficult days, triggers that brought back painful memories, challenges in rebuilding financial security. But the foundation was solid now, built on truth, healthy boundaries, and genuine love, rather than obligation or manipulation. The most valuable lesson from this painful chapter was learning to recognize true family, not defined by blood or obligation, but by mutual respect, support, and love. Patricia had shown me what family shouldn't be. Jessica, Tyler, and Melanie showed me what it could be. I closed my laptop, made a cup of tea, and stepped onto the porch. The night was clear, stars visible above the neighborhood trees. For the first time in my adult life, I felt truly free, no longer tethered to an endless cycle of guilt and financial servitude. The price had been terribly high, but the lesson was priceless. Setting boundaries isn't selfish. Protecting your child isn't cruel. Refusing to fund someone else's addiction isn't heartless. Sometimes, saying no is the bravest, most loving thing you can do, for yourself and for those who truly deserve your care. Have you ever had to set difficult boundaries with family members who demanded too much? What would you have done in my situation? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. If this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe for more real, life experiences that might help others facing similar challenges. And if you know someone struggling with family financial manipulation, please share this video. Sometimes knowing you're not alone makes all the difference. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember, your worth isn't measured by how much you give to those who hurt you, but by how fiercely you protect what truly matters.